guys, it's Miss Joy here. I just want to help you further understand the story of King Ahab and King Ben-Hadad and what happens here when Ahab first makes an alliance with an enemy and then decides to depend on God and then decides that he's going to make another alliance with the same enemy. So you need to read 1 Kings 20, the entire chapter, and you have 2 days to redo the reading, look through the materials, and get the assignments done, so don't stress it. But you have got to make sure that you've done the reading, and then I want you to watch this video and check out the summary and the highlights to make sure you understand everything correctly. So, if you have not already read the chapter, stop the video, go read the chapter, and then return. Alright, give you 5 seconds, stop. We're good? Moving on. So, when you look in chapter 20 of 1 Kings, it starts by talking about when King Ben-Hadad comes and sends his messengers to King Ahab, who is the current king of Israel, and says, hey, you need to send me all your silver, golds, your wives, and the best of your children. And it all belongs to me. And so instead of seeking the Lord or anything, we see that King Ahab immediately says, yes, all that is valuable that I have belongs to you in terms of the silver, gold, wives, and children. Well, then Ben-Hadad's messengers come back and say, well, that's not enough. We're going to come and we're going to search your city and we're going to look for anything that we see valuable and we're going to take it. Ahab then talks to the elders and he says, hey, is that something we should agree to? And his elders say, nah, don't do that. So then he sends a message back to Ben-Hadad that says, we will not comply to your second request. We will give you what we said we already would, but we are not going to give in to what you have asked for the second time. So then Ben-Hadad sends another message back to Ahab. This is in verse 10, and it says, then Ben-Hadad sent this message to Ahab. May the gods strike me and even kill me if there remains enough dust from Samaria to provide even a handful for each of my soldiers. So basically he's saying, we're going to come, we're going to destroy you, and if we find anything that is of value, if it's even enough to give one soldier, you're done for. Dunzo. We're going to then destroy you into where there is nothing left. No dust, no anything to give to any of the soldiers. So basically he's saying, we're going to come, we're going to destroy you, you should not have done this. Ahab's reply was this, in verse 11, the king of Israel sent back this answer, a warrior putting on his sword for battle should not boast like a warrior who has already won. And that comes from actually Proverbs 27:1, there's a connection there, but basically it's saying, do not boast about winning if you haven't even fought yet. So, when we look through the rest of the story in verse 13, then a certain prophet came to King Ahab of Israel and told him, this is what the Lord says, do you see all these enemy forces? Today I will hand them all over to you, then you will know that I am Lord. So basically this prophet comes, he says that the Lord's going to give him the victory. Ahab kind of doubts him a little bit, but eventually he decides, alright, I'll do what he says. And so then in verse 21, we see that the king of Israel destroyed the other horses and chariots and slaughtered the Arameans, who were the people that King Ben-Hadad was ruling over. So God does give King Ahab the victory, but we see in verse 22, it says, afterward, the prophet said to King Ahab, get ready for another attack. Begin making plans now, for the king of Aram will be back next spring. So he basically was giving him a heads up that, hey, he's not done yet. There's going to be another battle, and you need to start preparing now. So we see in verse 23 that after their defeat, Ben-Hadad's officers said to him, the Israelites' gods are gods of the hill, that is why they won. But we can beat them easily on the plains. Only this time replace the kings with the field commanders. Recruit another army like the one you lost. Give us the same number of horses, chariots, and men, and we will fight against them on the plains. So basically his people were telling him, the reason that we lost was because we fought them in the hills, and their gods are gods of the hills, meaning that they have more power in the hills than they do in the plains. So we're going to fight them on the lower surfaces, and we should be able to win. However, we know that the reason that King Ahab won was because God was with him. So if you're carrying on, it says, the following spring, he called up the Aramean army and marched out against Israel, this time at Aphek. Israel then mustered its army, set up supply lines, and marched out for battle. But the Israelite army looked like 2 little flocks of goats in comparison to the vast Aramean forces that filled the countryside. So just like the prophet told him back in verse 22, the following spring, they were ready for battle again. In verse 28, it says, then the man of God went to the king of Israel and said, this is what the Lord says. The Arameans have said, Their God is the God of the hills and not of the plains. So I will defeat this vast army for you. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So again, the Lord is saying to King Ahab, I will deliver you and your people from this issue that you have and since created. So that means that God is trying to prove to King Ahab that he is the Lord of all, and that it doesn't matter if he's in the hills or in the valleys, that he has the ability to conquer everything. And we know that's true, right? Right. Okay. So then, if you carry on and looking in the story that we are in, I lost my place, sorry. Verse 29. The two armies camped opposite each other for 7 days, and on the seventh day the battle began. The Israelites killed 100,000 Aramean foot soldiers in one day. The rest fled into the town of Aphek, but the wall fell on them and killed another 27,000. Ben-Hadad fled into the town and hid in a secret room. Verse 31. Ben-Hadad's officers said to him, Sir, we have heard that the kings of Israel are merciful, so let's humble ourselves by wearing burlap around our waists and putting ropes on our heads, and surrender to the king of Israel. Then perhaps he will let you live. So they put on burlap ropes, and they went to the king of Israel and begged, Your servant Ben-Hadad says, Please let me live. The king of Israel responded, Is he still alive? He is my brother. Then the men took this as a good sign and quickly picked up on his words. Yes, they said, your brother Ben-Hadad. Go get him, the king of Israel told them. And when Ben-Hadad arrived, Ahab invited him up into his chariot. Ben-Hadad told him, I will give back the towns my father took from your father, and you may establish places of trade in Damascus, as my father did in Samaria. Then Ahab said, I will release you under these conditions. So they made a new treaty, and Ben-Hadad was set free. However, Ahab did not consult the Lord or the prophet of the Lord in any of this. So, the reason Ahab was in this whole mess in the first place was because he made an alliance with someone that he was not supposed to. That led to war because the alliance turned bad. Now, he's saying that he's going to make another alliance with the same man that just went to war with him twice. So, I want you to keep reading in verse 35 through 41. Verse 35 through 43, and you will see how the Lord feels about this. So, in your assignments, you're going to have to answer some questions, and I'm not going to go through the ending, but I want you to think, did Ahab do the right thing by making another alliance with King Ben-Hadad? Let me know. Alright, so hopefully you have taken the time to go ahead and read verses 35 through 43, but I do just want to recap those really quickly with you to make sure you understand the significance of being obedient and the importance of following through on God's commands especially when he delivers you from situations that you have gotten yourself into. So, when we look at verse 35, we see, meanwhile, the Lord instructed one of the group of prophets to say to another man, Hit me. But the man refused to hit the prophet. Then the prophet told him, Because you have not obeyed the voice of the Lord, a lion will kill you as soon as you leave me. And when he had gone, a lion did attack and kill him. So again, we see in just two scriptures how important it is to obey the voice of the Lord. Yes? 37. Then the prophet turned to another man and said, Hit me. So he struck the prophet and wounded him. The prophet placed a bandage over his eyes to disguise himself and then waited beside the road for the king. As the king passed by, the prophet called out to him, Sir, I was in the thick of battle, and suddenly a man brought me a prisoner. He said, Guard this man. If for any reason he gets away, you will either die or pay a fine of 75 pounds of silver. But while I was busy doing something else, the prisoner disappeared. Well, it's your own fault, the king replied. You have brought the judgment on yourself. Verse 41. The prophet quickly pulled the bandage from his eyes, and the king of Israel recognized him as one of the prophets. The prophet said to him, This is what the Lord says. Because you have spared the man I said must be destroyed, you must now die in his place, and your people will die instead of his people. So the king of Israel went home to Samaria angry and sullen. So, not only did God deliver King Ahab, but he gave specific directions to King Ahab about what should happen to King Ben-Hadad. He said that he must be destroyed. And instead of destroying him, he decided to make an alliance with him because he liked the feeling of a powerful man begging for him. He liked how it felt to be in control and to have all these people submitting to him. So rather than destroying him, like the Lord said, he decided to keep him around so that he could beg for mercy. King Ahab wanted to feel powerful, but we are not in charge. And if the Lord delivers us from a situation and gives us specific directions as to what to do, we should certainly follow it. So, hopefully you understand the story fully. If not, please feel free to ask questions. But make sure that after you have done your reading and watch these videos that you go finish your assignments and do your study guide questions. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks, guys.